Hello, social workers, mental professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bash Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Continue to follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is all one word. Of course, the YouTube channel that I'm trying to grow and hit that red subscribe button. And on the audio side, like, share, rate the podcast, leave comments, and of course, like videos and leave comments on the YouTube page as well. So today's going to talk about something different. I always like to educate those of you that watch or listen to the podcast, different aspects of social work that people are doing, creative ways are doing great work using their social work skills, but in a non-traditional setting. So Bella Reyes is a music industry social worker. If you've never heard of it, we're gonna talk about what is that. Hey Bea, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much. And hello to everybody watching and listening. I go by Bea, but you can find more information about me, Sabea Reyes, your favorite music industry social worker for now, because I do believe in my heart that there are more coming.
Awesome. What is a music industry social worker?
Well, you're looking at it right now, right? Because I am self-proclaimed, and from what I know, the only music industry social worker right now, right? The music industry social worker is a movement. And I do want to disclose that I understand that there are many wonderful social workers that are already, supporting the wider music industry, the entertainment industry, even the touring industry, right? But the music industry social worker is specifically embedded in independent music culture. Okay. And particularly supporting those independent music creators who are generating less than 50% of their annual income from music business, right? Why? Because these are the people that are still working a 9 to 5, raising kids, working on having healthy, sustainable marriages while also chasing their passions and trying to turn their ambitions into career milestones, right? And we're seeing a lot of unhealthy things that are coming out of that because there's a lack of infrastructure or ecosystem. You know what I mean? There's issues with resource access,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then again, creative wellness overall, right? So that's where the independent music social worker comes in, right? I would say our work intersects at mental health, music, of course, but also real life. Okay. Um, and even on a macro level, right? We're really focusing on helping to strengthen and support the building of infrastructures for the independent music community to be able to build sustainable careers over time. Okay. And definitely having people trained in psychological safety, right? That can
Mm-hmm.
definitely point out, hey, this person seems like they may be a little symptomatic. We might want to get them in touch with their therapist or whatever the case is, right? Because, unfortunately, traditionally in the music industry, when it comes to mental illness, especially when it comes to like personality disorders, right? We see
Mm-hmm.
the industry take advantage of the benefits, right? Of the creativity from the artist. But as far as their mental health and wellness, it's neglected often.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could go by so many incredible artists, past, present, that have passed away for any number of reasons or being taken advantage of and never to be heard again, or just a variety of different things. How did you get started and like give a little, I guess a little bit of your background that led you to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I would say the idea, or not even just the idea, but me realizing the need, right, for the music industry social worker really comes from my own lived experience professionally as a songwriter, recording engineer, and executive producer of music myself, right? Interesting enough, I started a production company back in 2019 called Symphony Music Group, and during this time, uh, wow, I had acquired quite a bit of clients, right? In different states and things like that, and a lot of like telecommunication and and things like that. But ironically, I was also earning my credentials as a licensed clinical social worker. So it was really hard to leave that hat out of the room or the creative process, right? I was starting to see how, especially as a manager, right? Because I was managing artists as well. But I was really starting to see just how the limited resources, the lack in just business literacy when it comes to music business, work-life balance, and things like that. There were so many challenges that were around the music, that were around the person making the music, that it often got in the way of us putting out the best product possible, right? And being consistent and tapping into our creativity regularly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the music that's where I was like, you know what? If we had a social worker that can help with the resource navigation, help us
Mm-hmm.
build camaraderie, right? Like we need to build communities, right? Teach us how to, manage conflict, in creative settings. You know what I mean? Because even with me understanding these things, it was very difficult for me to put to the side my knowledge and expertise as a mental health or behavioral health specialist when at the end of the day, I'm dealing with my art too, right? And so like Erica Badu said, right? And I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my stuff, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that is, goes across the board for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So I feel like who I'm collaborating with isn't putting their best foot forward, you know what I mean? Or, the pressure of what we have to do collectively is getting the best of us. It can make it very difficult to again, remember those skills, right? And step out of being in the creative process as opposed to being a mental health professional. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it
Yeah.
was getting unhealthy in a lot of ways. I was seeing, things being exacerbated in my clients, but myself as well. You know what I mean? Like having that middle person, or again, just having that support and understanding, having the tools. Like, what do we do in these types of situations? How do we build a routine? You know what I mean? What does
Mm-hmm.
creative wellness look like? You know what I mean? Because on the independent side, it's you and your team that you build, right? You don't have a record label behind you. You got to do your own promotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in the digital age. The making the
Right.
music is not enough. You got to create content. You got to have some type of merchandise to generate income. You got to perform, build relationships with venues. You know what I mean? So it's a
Yeah.
lot that goes with it. And if we don't take care of ourselves, everything around us falls apart. And I'm seeing marriages, family dynamics being affected by trying to make music and keep up with what's necessary to be an independent artist in 2026.
That leads to a perfect segue because growing up in like the 80s and 90s with all these like music labels from like Sony and Arista and Interscope Records pretty much were machines behind a lot of like the artists that we grew up like listening to and watching and there was like obviously music videos and I remember Michael Jackson after The Simpsons like the world premiere of his new music video and it was such a big thing at the time and like we had like MTV and like BET and like 106 and Park and like and all these different shows that show music videos and everything artist publishing and all this stuff and you're mentioning like now like 2026 like unless you like subscribing to somebody's YouTube page like what is a music video. I have conversations with my wife all the time, like, oh, I like this artist, but like I don't even know what the artist look like unless I see them in an award show, be like, oh, that's what that person look like. It's like I like that music, but I don't even know who these artists are. Like, so
Yeah,
like, especially like reggaeton or artists nowadays. Like I like the music, but I have no idea what the person kind of look like.
same.
Um, Now, you mentioned like some of the struggles, like going back to like the machine pretty much pushed the artist to literally just have to write and like whether it be lyrics or and just actually perform like the lyrics, like and obviously the drama and that goes into that, but probably they still got their families that they got to support and feed and all this stuff. So like, can you get more of what you're seeing that in terms of like social work, mental health that you're kind of like tapping into that. trying to help these artists currently, because yeah, it
Yeah.
is I can't even imagine how hard it like really is. You literally have to do a little bit of everything.
You do, right? And I think that there's a shift happening. Okay. So I do want to go out there and say, right, because I'm a hope dealer, right? So we're going to start with the hope aspect. We are seeing healthier artists, longer careers in the digital age. Okay. So we're getting there, right? But there's still so much work to do. I think one of the things that really crippled, right, the industry was the fact that the development side, right, from the record labels went away, right? After Motown and certain like major labels and
Hmm.
things like that, like labels investing into artist development became something that, okay, a lot of money and stuff was going to, but for whatever reason, it just became less and less attractive, I guess, right? Record labels want people who are ready now, who can sing, who know how to
Hmm.
use their instrument, know how to perform, know how to do all of these things. But we really don't have a lot of guidance and resources on how to get there. You get what I'm saying? Is if
Yeah.
you don't take the academia route, which most of the independent music community, it's a privilege, right? Being able to go to school and learn
Hmm.
how to do song arrangements and composition, understand publishing and things like that. Don't get me wrong. We have YouTube University and all of these other wonderful
Hmm.
resources, but it is very overwhelming. It's, very surface level, and a lot of people are taking advantages of the ignorance. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Uh, right? When it comes to just our basic knowledge. And again, music business literacy, professional development in the
Hmm.
independent music community, and creative wellness, right? So that is the biggest thing right there. Once artist development was taken away and the music industry leaders stopped pouring into that,
Hmm.
it got bad. It got bad, right? So what are we seeing now? In the digital music age, a lot of people are making music from home, putting it right on their computers,
Hmm.
uploading it on TikTok, doing a little dance. Okay. And boom, the next thing you know, you got a hit. You know what I mean? And people are seeing that and they think that that's how the music industry goes, right?
Hmm.
But I mean, if we're being honest, like it takes a good, five to $10,000, right, to invest in making a good song and getting it out there and making sure it gets the attention that it deserves, right? A lot of people don't understand what happens to the music after it leaves the studio. And on the
Hmm.
independent side, we're seeing a lot of people who want to do the creative work. But again, when you're independent, you have to do the business too,
Hmm.
right? You have to do the administrative things. You got to make sure your music is registered. So if they play it at TGI Fridays, you get credit for it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And how you can make a living from your art, right? So what are we seeing? We're seeing a lot of people on this hamster wheel bass, you know what I mean, who are doing what they think they're seeing other people do and they're not getting anywhere, right? That don't know how to connect or build fan bases. They're associating, with their art and their, capabilities, right? How many people are listening to their music, how many views they're getting on social media. They don't understand how to set goals. You know what I mean? Or their
Hmm.
goals are, super vague, but we have to make little goals, right? To get to where we're
Yeah.
going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we are seeing confidence and creativity being attacked on a regular basis on the independent music side, right? Definitely people living with high functioning depression and anxieties. And then, like I was saying, the family structure is being affected. I can say personally, in my lived experience as an executive producer, first of all, I don't play. And I don't play with myself, right? All right. So if we're saying this is what we're doing, we have expectations laid at the table. When it's time to rehearse, that's not the time to practice. You should be practicing on your own and we're together, we're rehearsing for the show, right? You know what I mean? And those kinds of
Hmm.
things. And I have to hold them accountable, right? Especially on the manager side where I'm literally managing the day to day and what's happening with the artist and the music. But I would see that in a lot of ways, the balance it's been really difficult to see a success, right? And what work-life balance looks like without having resources and an infrastructure and camaraderie, right? We're
Hmm.
literally playing a sport with no sportsmanship, no coaches, no plays. You get what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
No, I get
So,
it.
okay, so with that being said, I think one of the most common, I would say, I don't want to say gripes, right? But when it came to like especially marriage and family, a lot of the things that I would see is that people are having to choose, especially men. right? I work in the
Mm,
hip hop space, in the R&B space, Christian hip hop, Christian R&B as well. And I hear it all the time. Man, Bayer, I'm so sorry. Like, my wife is saying that she feels like I'm putting more effort into my music career than I am my marriage, so I have to fall back. Or,
mm,
my music is getting in the way with me being able to help my wife out with getting the kids after school or helping with homework and things like that. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
and it sucks, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to figure out how to do both if this is what we want to do, because the industry
Mm,
isn't slowing down. It's becoming even more demanding, right?
mm,
And now we're seeing that the music labels, the major music labels, they're kind of shutting down. And what are they doing? They're heading towards AI.
mm,
So what's happening? What's happening is we're going to a Scantron system soon. So all these independent artists, like you guys have to learn how to produce for real. You have to learn how to write for real and arrange and understand vocal production and music theory, because soon enough, your music is going to get scanned by an AI system that is going to
mm,
compare it to the Mariah Careys and the Diane Warrens and all of these people, top 40.
yeah.
If you don't get a certain score, then you won't qualify for opportunities,
Mm,
right? And you can imagine the type of anxiety that comes with that, right? Especially with our baseline right now and not having enough development support. So that's what we're focusing on, right? Helping to, alleviate a lot of those pressures by giving them opportunity and direction, doing writers camps, doing creative networking opportunities, giving them feedback on their live performances, teaching them how to write and arrange songs. You know what I mean? What does the music industry standard sound like, right? Right? Understanding that, okay, what is the mix and the master supposed to sound like when your song is on the radio? You know what I mean? And those types of things. Things that people, it's not common knowledge.
yeah. This is almost like a parallel with somebody starting out in like private practice, and like we mentioned at the very beginning, like schools, uh or the social work profession kind of gears folks into go do a private practice, but they don't teach about how to market yourself to get clients, how to get clients, like taxes, and all this other stuff. So that's what's in my mind is like very similar from what you're saying as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I would totally agree with that because, like you're saying, the independent music community, like their jobs. You're an artist, you are or a manager, you're an engineer or producer, whatever, however you're contributing to music independently by yourself with your own money, that puts you in the independent music community. But if you don't know how to market yourself, if you don't know, understand your craft, and again, what the music industry standard is, you know what I mean? You're going to waste a lot of money and time trying to figure it out. There's a lot of trial and error. And again, it's the same thing with the social workers. Hey, yeah, start a private practice, but dang, how do I get an NPI number? You know what I mean? Like what, like
Mm,
what, how do I build relationships? How do I put myself out there and get clients? Like what do I do? Yeah, I get the private practice aspect and it sounds great, but there's a lot that has to be done before I can get to that point and be successful. Yeah, like how do I become successful at this?
yeah. Uh, some music, at least from growing up in New York and kind of like seeing the kind of like progression of like from like the music videos and like all the uh, industry labels to like that people started like SoundCloud, like downloading music and people kind of like blew up that way and you mentioned AI too, like AI is here. Like I heard a few songs like there people out there like create AI music, and there's like a couple of AI artists and like sound like any real life person. The music sounds great. I think somebody like an AI artist even like charted in the charts. It was like, hey, what
Mhm.
is going to so
Yeah.
how does it affect like somebody's like an independent artist like mental health? They kind of like see and hear that and it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah. And I mean, it affects everybody differently, right? So I can't speak like specifically on how I can just give like generalization in what I'm seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, we are in a shift, right? The Supreme Court literally just ruled that AI music cannot be copyrighted. You know what I mean? We just got to that point, right? We also learned that, okay, if you are going to use AI music, we're allowed to do so if we're doing remixes or covers of songs that already exist, right? But the issue with that had a lot to do with what happened to the music after you got it, right? You're using platforms, and I won't name any, right? But you're using certain AI platforms to, bring your idea to life. But can you really take credit for that intellectual property? Is it your
Mm,
idea because it came from this machine, right? And then what happens, right? You get this disclaimer from these AI saying, oh, yeah, you have rights to the music and whatever the case is. But when it comes to licenses and publishing, that's a whole different conversation.
absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
let's say I build an AI song and it's fire and it takes off on TikTok. And guess what? Somebody steals my idea. I can't defend myself in court because I made that song through AI, right?
Mm,
I can use the song, but so can they, or whatever the case is, right? And if they have the resources to manipulate a few things, switch a few things up, they can
mhm,
find a way, music business wise, to make money from it. Whereas somebody who doesn't understand how the business goes kind of gets messed over with it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it really is about like we are literally again in the digital age. The industry is changing, and with uncertainty, a lot of things are getting exacerbated. So whatever people are already walking in the door with, I'm seeing is just becoming exacerbated. I'm not seeing any new symptoms, any new disorders or anything like that,
Mhm.
but definitely exacerbation.
Get and add a 2026 economy, we'll be dealing with it, inflation, gas prices, everything going up except the check, pretty much.
Hello.
Uh,
Hello. And it's expensive to be in the independent music community. It is expensive to be independent, right? So you're literally going to your job because you're your own private investor.
and that goes back to like if you own a small business owner, you're putting money in until you get the resources and able to get business loans or business credit cards, and you still got to pay those off, and a lot of the time that you're paying that off until you start making a profit. So,
Hello.
uh, so uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
uh, there's a lot of seems like a lot of parallels in terms of
Mhm.
you know us business owners who are social workers as well.
Yeah.
Not you're making no very good points. Like and I think back, I feel like that if we could have more social work music industry social workers, I'm sure it'd be a lot potential beefs like not even happening, or at least like no conflict resolutions like without resorting to violence or things of
Yes.
that nature. Or who knows, if there was a social worker in 96, 97, maybe Tupac and Biggie might still be with us.
Okay, hello, right? And I love that example, right? Because that was probably one of the most famous beefs, right? Outside of
Yeah,
this Drake and Kendrick Lamar situation. But of course, it didn't end as tragically, right? But
right.
absolutely, when I say that we are playing a sport with no sportsmanship, there's no camaraderie, right? And again, we're supporting a lot of people in the hip hop space, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
diss tracks, you know what I mean, or battle rap is a part of hip hop culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
But learning how to do that as a good sport, you know what I mean, has been tough without
Yeah.
guidance, right? Without that type of support, without understanding acceptance, and again, using your art with your raw emotions in responsible ways, right? We're to the point where we're killing each other because of something that we said. You know what I mean? Like, come
Yeah.
on, he's entitled to his feelings. You're entitled to your feelings. At the end of the day, we're on the same team, independent artists, right? We will compete. You know what I mean? I would say friendly competition, but the biggest competition when it comes to this industry is the competition with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You being better, a better artist every day. You know what I mean? And what's meant for you is meant for you. It's enough money out here for all of us, right? We don't have to kill each other because we didn't like what somebody said.
Yeah. And that kind of remind me of like social work too. Is like there's plenty of money out there to be made, and not like not having to gatekeep information or like ways to apply for grants or like government contracts. Just share the information. If you know you get it, you get it. But you might be helping. You help somebody, and who knows? Like, God will like, okay, like you help somebody now. Now's your turn. Like, just they'll pay it forward, and you eventually you get it back. Maybe not right away, but eventually you get it back.
Absolutely. And I think that my military experience definitely helped me bring that to the table in the
Mm.
independent music community and learning that there's this common understanding that independent means alone for some reason, right? So we're kind of undoing that and we're, doing like a renewal of that perspective because independent does not mean alone. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you have to do everything by yourself, right? It means you have, and when it comes to the music industry, and anyway, I mean, collaboration is key. If
Yeah,
you don't know how to collaborate, even in the creative process, when you're a songwriter, if you're a songwriter that's only writing music in your bedroom, right, you can become great at it, right? But to be successful in the industry to the point where you can make a living off of it, you're going to learn how to, play nice with others and, collaborate with people you don't know, you know what I mean? And just be
yeah,
comfortable in those types of environments and situations, right? And those are the things that the music industry social worker is doing as far as like partnering with music business leaders, educational institutions, mental health professionals, or whatever, so that we can provide those kinds of opportunities, right? We aren't the ones necessarily that's going to teach you how to write the song or arrange it, but we can most definitely make sure we get you in the room with somebody who can. You know what I
mm,
mean? And and
yeah.
and yeah, that's basically what we're doing as far as those resource navigation and again building community.
No, I like that. Much for being in the service. You were in the Navy. No, thank you for your service. No,
Oh, thank
uh,
you.
how was that experience like for you?
Sorry, I got some notes. Okay. Yeah, so I served in the US Navy for 11 years. Discharged honorably. I would say this year actually is going to be my 10th anniversary as a military veteran officially. I got out in 2016. I would say that my experience was, it was interesting, lots of ups, lots of downs, you know what I mean? It is a male-dominated world, and I
Mm,
was actually an engineer, right? So I was a petroleum engineer and a boiler water, feed water chemist. So very, very different background as far as like working with people. I'm used to working with, gas and, systems and things like that, right? But I would say one thing that the military definitely instilled in me was just understanding, differences in what it means to be a supervisor versus a leader. You know what I
mm,
mean? And the military is I would say for sure, is one of those jobs where if you are a supervisor, you have the mindset of a supervisor, you're not going to get far. People will hold you accountable and you will be forced into leadership development, right? The military breeds leaders, and that's what we need. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Again, leadership and supervision, two completely different things, right? So I definitely would say I left a leader, understanding the importance and the power of mentorship. I still have mentors that followed me since I was a young little baby sailor, to this day, who still check on me, hold me accountable, make sure I'm taking care of myself, that I'm chasing my dreams, using my military benefits, you know what I mean, in the process, you know what I mean? And again, just that community, right? Fortitude, resiliency, those things were great character building characteristics that I left with as well. But I would say one thing I think that set me back in my transition, not just in the civilian sector, but definitely in the creative community, was the type of leadership I had developed. Right? I can't go into the independent music community with my military, you know what I mean, leadership because
Mm,
it was
no,
very
yeah.
authoritative. Yeah, man, very authoritative. Like I was used to giving orders, right? So there was quite an adjustment period where I had to learn how to handle creativity sensitively, right? And even just studying and understanding collaborative language. which
Mm,
is something that I had to learn because I did not leave the military with that, right? There was no collaborating with my team, right? I would collaborate with departments, okay, or department heads. Hey, this is what we got to do collectively. This is the mission. You guys are in charge of that. We're in charge of this. I'm going to make sure my guys are squared away, and whatever we're contributing is going to be in excellence. You do the same thing. But as far as collaborating with an intimate team and working together, it wasn't like that. I was giving orders, which was completely different. So that was a really cool shift. And again, some great character building once I got out and transitioned as a civilian, and again, started getting into my leadership in the music industry.
mm. And again, another parallel of like, you work in direct practice in social work, and you want to move up to supervisor. Usually you don't get supervisor training. Like, you think of that leadership, but the skills you got to acquire. People skills and dealing with different backgrounds you're dealing with and how to navigate stuff. And so it's you got to learn those skills, and there's not a lot of trainings out there, or at least in the past, to teach those type of skills. So you might be a great worker, but be a horrible
Yeah.
supervisor because you don't have those skills. So very,
Yeah.
very, I could definitely see the similarities with that.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And even just in my social work journey, I had reached a point where I was very pleased, overwhelmed, and excited for what I was able to build with my career as a social worker, as an independent contractor. And just like anything, everything has its pros and cons, but the major con for me was not having that leadership experience as a behavioral health professional. That was missing, right? Yes, I can do great things alone, right? You know what I mean, as an independent contractor, but when it came to leading a team, having a collective common goal and things like that, that was something that I had to get my butt right back into the workforce to gain experience in.
Uh, how and like what steps, like, was there a particular program or anything, or like how did you eventually gain those skills?
Yeah, so honestly, once this music industry social worker thing kicked off and I started getting emails from people who want to be involved in, hey, I want to do this music industry social worker thing. Hey, I go to NYU. Do you guys do internships or whatever the case is? Once I realized that I had been positioned to develop music industry social workers, I was like, well, shoot, I think I'm about the only social worker I've ever developed. You know what I mean? So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what opportunities are out there. And yeah, I'm going to apply for some leadership positions where I have leaders that can help build me and guide me in the process. I really wanted to challenge myself as a professional, right? And so what I did was I was honest with myself about the population that I wanted to serve, right? And as far as outside of the independent music community, my favorite population is corrections, right? So my
Mm.
specialty is correctional mental health. I'm in the jail and I'm known as the coping skills lady. You know what I mean? So it was just, yeah. And I had that experience, right? I interned there while I was earning my MSW. So, I was well versed in, what was needed. And then, yeah, I ended up picking a position as a director of mental health for quite a few jails and detention facilities out in the Wisconsin area, rural
Mm.
Wisconsin. You know what I mean? And it was wonderful. I got a lot of experience. I learned a lot. I was given a team. And again, I had a corporate behavioral team as well that was there to support me and making sure that I was successful as a leader and making sure my team had what they need. So that's what I would say is, just being honest with the population that I want to serve and yeah, chasing opportunities, you know what I mean, that are available from there.
Well, I like that. Who have been like some of like your musical influences that you grew up listening to that maybe help inspire doing the work that you're currently doing?
Yeah. So I will say my number one is somebody that doesn't necessarily make music, but they make stars. And I'm going to go with Barry Gordy from Motown, right?
Mm.
I think that our journeys are really synonymous in a lot of ways, right? He is very passionate about developing artists, right? And preparing them for stardom and
Mm.
longevity in music business, right? Barry Gordon did not pick up an instrument. He don't play instruments, okay? But okay, you know him from Motown, okay?
Right.
And his legacy lives on, right? So
Hmm.
that was number one. Number two, another thing that I would say influenced me as far as Barry Gordy is his family support system. When he started his
Mm.
record label, he took a loan out from his family. He didn't go to a bank. His family is what supported his dreams. And it's the same thing with me and my family. I'm so very blessed, right? And then also, he took his real world professional experience working at the assembly line in Detroit, building cars, seeing the checkpoints and quality assurance and everything that it took to take all of these little parts, put them together as a vehicle and get it off the lot and sold is what he used to build his framework for developing artists in the music industry, right? And it's the
Mm.
same thing that I'm wanting to do on the social work aspect, bringing that person and environment lens to the independent music community so that it can be healthier and thrive. So definitely
I
Barry
like that.
Gordy.
Yeah. The person and environment framework in the music industry. It is needed. It's
Absolutely.
you got somebody grew up rough neighborhood, like drugs, gangs, violence, and you're writing from what you see. A lot of, especially hip hop artists, R&B artists, they
Yeah.
write write what they see, what they experience, and you gotta like kind of like not tone it down per se, but really dig deep and like understand like why they're writing what they're writing, what they experience, and learning to collab and doing all the things and to you know you might not like the person, but the person's gonna get you where you want to go. Like you gotta like work with them, and it's same like working in a 9 to 5. They might not like the person, but you got have a common goal to achieve. So it's
Yeah.
like it goes back to a lot of parallels.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
And you mentioned like music development, and I know know he's become like famous for currently in jail, but late '90s, 2000s, no Diddy with the or making the band, no artist
Oh,
development shows, and
well, I appreciate Diddy. Diddy's probably one of my favorite executive producers, right? Just because he's not afraid to get on the microphone, and that is a lot like my style. And I love how he uses his love for R&B and blends it with hip hop, right? I think he was probably one of the people that did that the best, in my opinion. But I would say, uh, watching making the band as a kid and things like that. I think that and I think that what he did with, how he treated his artist, again, not having that collaborative language, the type of leadership style that he has, I think he kind of created this facade that in order for you to be successful in the independent music community, you have to suffer. You know what I mean? And that's something that I just, I have to turn away from because I don't necessarily believe in that. We
right.
suffer enough, life is hard enough, and amen. That's
Yes.
why we have great music to write about, right? You know what I mean? But I would say, yeah, Diddy was for sure an influence of mine, and still is when it comes to his specific skill set and what his contribution to the space, right, musically. But as far as his leadership style, I think it's pretty outdated, right? And I think that has a lot to
Yeah.
do with his generation. I don't know. I
Hmm.
can speak for myself. I came from a do as I say, not as I do, you know what I mean? Kind of culture, and things like that. And I think as far as millennials are concerned, we ask a lot of questions and that just doesn't work for us anymore.
No, yeah, and so I was thinking about that kind of like today, yesterday, like even like a lot has changed since pandemic, and then you go back another 5 years, things wasn't the same, and even going back, so when you got honorably discharged in 2016, like within these last 10 years, though, the only thing that hasn't changed is the orange man causing a ruckus in
Okay.
in DC. That's like the only, and he's gotten worse in doing that.
I'm cracking up because I'm telling you, I was freaking out, Bass. That is so funny. I started off as an artist a teenager. I was writing songs and I was a recording artist as a teenager where we were making music on CDs. Okay. And when I
Mm.
got called back to music in 20, I was actually called back to music in 2020. Now there's no CDs, digital music, Spotify. What is
Yeah.
this? You know what I mean? Like, how do we release music now? So you're absolutely right. It was a complete culture shift and it's still changing, but I do believe it's for the better now.
In what ways?
Well, I think at the end of the day, and I said this before, the digital music business is super saturated because it's been so easily accessible. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
people are making music and they're uploading it and putting it
Mm-hmm.
out from their computers with no feedback, no focus groups, no mentorship, no knowledge of the craft of music. And again, the music industry, standard, right? People don't understand that music is a discipline, right? So when we are talking about contributing to music business and the numbers, right? Things are getting watered down. The quality of music is different. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It's starting to sound
Yes.
different. Even the substance, you know what I mean? We're losing substance, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
also has a lot to do with the human experience now, especially post the pandemic and when it comes to our emotional intelligence, right? People can
Yeah.
only write about what they experience, right? But that's a whole nother conversation, right?
Right.
But what I say for the better, I think that the way things are shifting is it really is starting to force people to have to go out of their way to understand the craft, to understand the music standard, to understand music theory and how to make music, right? As opposed to doing music. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
we're getting to a point where we have to be more intentional. And I think that a lot of the people who have a true passion for this, who are really trying to take their ambition and again, turn it into career milestones, that's what we need, right? Right? That's what we need. We
Right.
need to be able to have support in making intentional music. You know what I mean? Especially for the people who are ready.
Yeah. And it's funny you said like the music is watered down and definitely hip hop, but I feel like most of the genres now is like watered down. Like, um, I love bachata music, but that's definitely been like watered down some. Even some of the reggaeton has been. It's still up there, but compared to how it was like from like '99 to like 2005, you definitely could tell like this like it's definitely not the same. Like the lyrics there was actually was like storytelling
Yeah.
that's definitely has gone away throughout many of the genres now, and some of the genres you don't even like really hear anymore, like kind of like R&B is definitely not how it was in like 2000s and 99. There's like there's no groups like male groups like doing
Oh wait, we
anything,
got
so
male groups. We got boy bands. R&B has a different sound,
okay.
right? It's not dead, you know what I mean? But like I said, one thing that I've
But
noticed
that's a
that
perception.
hey, I guess I will say the R&B community, the R&B community would agree that R&B is not dead, and we are seeing a lot of our greats, our goats, our R&B leaders. They're involved,
Okay.
right? They are involved in literally keeping it alive and well. You're seeing Tank and Usher, the Chris Browns, you know what I mean? You're seeing all of them, Miss Melba Moore, okay, Patricia Russian, you know what I mean? Like they are all still involved in having a spiritual obligation to making sure that R&B doesn't die. And I think we're seeing the same thing with hip hop too. You know what I mean? But like I said, the lived experience of humans right now is really what's getting in the way. And when we're talking
Hmm.
about things getting watered down, it's the emotion that is missing from the music. I think that what
Hmm.
made the magic or the music, back then so special was not only being able to articulate feelings and emotion, but to personify them through sound. And if you haven't experienced being in love and actually having your heart broken, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
only so much that you can do through your art. You know what I'm saying? You get
No,
what I
yeah.
mean?
No, yeah.
But now we're living in this reptilian era where feelings aren't cool. Okay. And people are trying to figure out how to live life like robots, and we're missing out on so much.
Hmm.
So what stories are we really telling? The same ones over and over and over and over, just like you're saying. Bachata, I can't tell you, and I'm from South Florida. I'm Cuban American. My dad is African American, and I was raised off of bachata, Daddy Yankee, Don Omar, Zion A. Lennox, Winston and Yandel, like all of that, right? But it got to a point where I had to kind of stop listening to bachata too, because we're talking about the same things, right? I still have Aventura in rotation, and that does it for me. Like I'm okay. I'm okay with, Aventura from 2005. It gets me
Exactly.
there.
But
And I
even like
hear
Romeo, like some of his new stuff, it was like, bro, like even like you fell off with like with your like your songwriting and like you got to
it.
curse regularly to like promote a song. It's like, bro, you wasn't doing that when you first came out.
Yes, it's different. It's different. I still love Romero. I still love him, Romero Santos. He's still zaddy. But yeah, I just don't relate to his music now. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't relate to it anymore. Hmm.
You, since you work with independent artists, you feel with what's happening in our political climate, like even more pressure for them to like speak out in their music or what they're doing, or you're not seeing that.
No, not at all. I think that's the cool thing. We're seeing people definitely use their platforms to do so, people who are affected by it, but I haven't seen or noticed anybody feeling pressured to have to be a part of the conversation through their music.
Okay.
Hmm.
I I guess that no, that's a good thing. Like I said, if you're doing everything else, the marketing or try to market and release a song and write and you're doing everything that you're just trying to get out there first and have some money in your pocket to feed your family to really
Yeah,
like you don't need it. You're already under a ton of pressure already, unless like you said, if it's really like directly affecting you, then there's not much to really kind of like go that route.
right.
And again, also if it does affect you, then you got a topic to write about. You can write, you can do a whole album based on that. So
Hello.
it kind of goes
Yes.
both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For sure.
That how can people like reach out to you? Get if they say I want to know more how to
Yeah.
do.
Thank you. So yeah, I am available on social media, particularly Instagram and Facebook, by my producer tag, which is Bea Beat Messenger. Okay, you can find me there. Also, if you want to know more about the music industry social worker and the work that I'm doing, you can visit Track Society's website, right? We have a page dedicated to the music industry social worker with updates and on our impact and things like that. So you can visit the website at www.tracksociety.org. Track Society is a nonprofit organization that I have founded, and I am currently the executive director of. We're here in the greater Houston area, and everything that we're talking about as far as like making sure the independent music community has what it needs. That's what Track Society is doing. And we're nonprofit. So we are really focusing on the development of the independent music community, and we're starting in the greater Houston area.
Awesome. Great conversation. I'm glad we connect and yeah, no, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You too. I appreciate you having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching.